All right, part 377, payment of transportation charges. All right. Subpart A, handling COD shipments at 101, applicability 103, tariff requirements 105, collection of remittance. Subpart B, extension of credit of shippers for hire, non-exempt motor carriers, household good freight forwarders. 201 scope, 203 extension credit of the shippers, 205 presentation freight bills, 207 effect of the mailing freight bills for the payments, 209 additional charges, 211 computation of time, 213 through 215 reserve, 217 interline settlement of revenues. Subpart A, handling of the COD shipments, 377 to 101 applicability, the rules regulation for the party apply with the transportation motor vehicle with the cash on delivery shipments, all for hire motor carriers property subject to the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 13702. Exemption of these rules in these parts do not apply with the transportation auxiliary or to supplemental transportation by railroad performed on railroad bills of lading. These rules in part does not apply with the transportation which is performed on freight forward bills of lading. 373-103 tariff requirements. No motor carrier prompt subject for the provision of Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 13702 exempt otherwise provided in 377-101 shall render any of the cash on delivery services unless such carriers are published and posted with the filed tariffs which contain the rates, charges, rules governing such services, which rules shall conform to the regulations in this part. 377 and 105 collection and remittance. Every motor carrier with the property subject to the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 13702 except otherwise provided in 377 and 101, which uses to provide cash on delivery services may publish and maintain cover the public publish maintain with the count tariff of the tariff set forth in the non-discrimination rules governing COD, cash on delivery service, the collection of the remittance of the cash on delivery funds. Alternatively, any of the carrier that provides the cash on delivery services must do, but does not wish to publish and maintain or cover the public be published or maintain its own non-discriminating tariff may be adopt the rule requiring remittance of any of each of the cash delivery collection directly to the consigner or other person designated with the consigner as the payee for within 15 days of each after delivery of the cash delivery of the consigner. All right, subpart B, extension of the credit of the shippers for the hire of the non-exempt for the motor carriers for the household goods and freight forwards. 377 to 201. Scope of these regulations apply with the extension of the credit of the transportation property and with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration regulations for hire with the non-exempt the motor carrier for the household good of the freight forward with the subject to the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code, sub with the subtitle 4 with the Part B, except the otherwise provided. Exempt of these regulations do not apply with the transportation for the United States, any of the Department of Bureau of the agencies thereof, any state of the public subdivision thereof, of the District of Columbia, the property transportation incidental passenger operations. 377 to 203. Extension of the credit and shipper the authorization extended credit for the carrier to meet the requirements within paragraph of the A2 with the section relinquish the possession of the freight with the advance of the payment of the tariff and charges of the extent of the credit of the amount with the such charges of the undertaking of the payment that such persons are called with the shippers in this part with the tariff and authorization to the carrier that shall take the reasonable action for the assure of the payment of the tariff and charge with the credit periods specified in this part. The tariff provisions published in pursuant with the regulations in paragraph D of the section when the credit period begins, the credit period shall begin with the day of the following presentation of the freight bill with the length of the credit period unless all the differential credit period has been established by the tariff publication pursuant. Paragraph D of this section, the credit period is in 15 days, include the Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. Carriers may establish different credit period for the tariff rule for the carriers may publish the tariff for the rules establishing the credit period of the different from those in which the paragraph C of this section. Such credit period shall be not longer than 30 calendar days. The service charges. The service charges shall not apply with any of the credit extent of this payment is made within the standard credit period with the term standard credit period issued with the preceding sentence. Remember the credit period is prescribed in paragraph C of this section as substitute with the credit period for the publisher with the tariff rule pursuant with the authorization in paragraph D of this section. Carriers may, by tariff rule, extend the credit with the additional time of the period of the subject of the service of the charge of the additional time of the combined length of the carrier's standing with the end credit period is defined in the paragraph E1 of this section. And it is, I got some kind of virus on my computer, I guess. It keeps on, yeah. Extended credit period of the consideration thereof would include the publishment of the service charges. Fuck you. Carriers in the tariff rules establish the charge for the payments made with after expiration of the authorized credit period. Such a rule shall ensue such charges on a daily following the last day of the authorized credit period, and or notify the shipper that the only purpose of it is to prevent shippers who does not pay on the time having free with the use of funds to do the carrier that does not sanction pay with the payment delays. The failure to pay with the authorized credit period will, despite with the provision, such charges continue, requiring the carrier before again extending credit with the determined and give the waive whether the shipper will comply with the credit regulations in further future. Tariff rules establish charges pursuant to paragraph E2 and E3 or 3 section may be established minimum charges. F. Discounts. Carriers may, by tariff rule, authorize discounts for earlier freight bill payments when credit is extended. G1 collection expense charge. The carriers may, by tariff rule, assess reasonable current liquidation damage if the all costs incurred with the collection of overdue freight charges. The carriers may use one of the two methods of these tariffs. First method is assess liquidation damage of the separate additional charge of the unpaid freight bill. In doing so, the tariff rule shall disclose the exact amount of the charges, stating either dollar or specified percentage amount with a combination of both the unpaid freight bill. The tariff shall further specify the time of the period which shall at least allow the authorized credit period within the shipper must pay to avoid such liquidation damages. The second method is to require payment of the full non-discounted rate instead of the discounted rate otherwise applicable. The difference between the discount and the full rate with the substitute for the carrier's liquidated damage of the collection effort. Under this method, tariff shall identify the discount rate with the subject to the condition precedent which require the shipper to make a payment by date certain. The date certain may not be set to occur by the carrier until at least after the expiration of the carrier's authorized credit period. The damage of the timing of their applicability conditions that any of them provide with the tariff rule with the methods allowed with under paragraph G1, 1, and 2. The section also shall be clearly described, and the tariff rule shall be applied without unlawful prejudice, unjust discrimination between similar situated shippers and consignors. Shall be applied only with the non-payment of original separate independent freight with the bills, and shall not be applied with the aggregated balance to the claim for the collection or past shipments for the bankruptcy trustees and any other person agent. Shall not apply with the instance of the clear clerical ministerial error of the non-receipt of the carrier's freight with the bill's shipper's payments of the check lost in the mail, the carrier's mailing of the freight bill with the wrong address. Alright, 5. Shall not apply with any way with the charge of the transportation or for the carrier bills of the landing and independent provided that the shipper is liable to fee with the incurred with the carrier in the collection of freight charges on the same transportation service shall be applied only after the authorized credit period, only when the carrier has issued the revised freight bill. Notice the imposition of the collection expense charge of the delay payment within 90 days after the expiration of the authorized credit period. As alternative to the tariff rule, the method allows the under paragraph G1 and 2 of the section of the carrier may have all wholly outside of its tariff of the asset for the collection charge of the other through the contract term of the bill of landing by using carrier and bills of the landing of the shipper to accept the bills of landing terms. The discrimination prohibited tariff rules published and pursuant to paragraphs D, E, and F of the section shall not be resolved the unreasonable discrimination among shippers. Alright, 377-205, presentation of freight bills. To be prepared shipments of the carrier shall present with the freight bill over all the transportation charges with it. The time period prescribed in paragraph A2 of the section is exempt. As noted in paragraph D of this section, as in 2 otherwise except in this part 2, the time period of the carrier present with the freight bill of the transportation charges shall be 7 days measured for the date of the carrier the receipt of the shipment at the time of the period does not include Saturdays and Sundays and legal holidays. B. Collect shipments. On collect shipments, the carrier shall carry the present freight bill with all the transportation charges for the time period prescribed in paragraph B2 of the section, except as noted in paragraph D of this section, or as otherwise expected, and in this part of the time period for the carrier of the presented freight bill of all the carrier and transportation for the charges shall be 7 days measured from the day of the shipment it was delivered to the destination. The time of the period does not include Saturdays or Sundays or legal holidays. Bills accompanying writing of the notice shall state with the penalty, the late penalty, the credit time limited with the charge of the and/or collection expenses charge, discount term with when the credit and when a credit is extended. The freight bills are separate. Remember the notice for the accompanying of the freight bill with the group of the freight bills presented at one time shall state with the failure to timely with the pay the freight charges may subject the tariff penalties. The statement of the similar import of the bills for the other non-notice shall also state with the time and by which the payment must be made with any applicable to preserve the charge of the end or collection expense charge of the discount terms. When the carrier lacks sufficient information to compute the tariff charge with the information insufficient to enable the carrier to compute the tariff, the charge of the non-available to carrier with the billing point, but the carrier shall present freight bill payment within 7 days of the following day. Upon sufficient information becomes available at the billing point with the time period does not include the Saturdays, Sundays, or legal holidays. The carrier shall not extend credit to any shipper that would fail with the furtherance of sufficient information to allow carrier to render the freight bill within a reasonable time after the shipment of the tender to the original carrier. As used in the paragraph, the shipper includes the button is not limited to freight forwarders and shippers associations and shipper agents. All right, 377 to 107. The effect of the mail, freight bills, and payments. Presentation freight bills by mail. Carriers present the freight bills by mail at the time of the mailing shall be deemed to be the time of presentation of the bill. The term freight bills, as used this paragraph, includes both paper documents, billing, and use of electronic media such as the computers, tapes, discs, when in the mails are used to transmit them. Payment by mail. When shipper mails accept with the check, the draft, the money ordered, and the payment of the freight charge, if they accept the act of the mail within the credit period, shall be deemed the collection of the tariff charges with the credit period of the purpose of the regulation. This part, disputes of any day of the mailing, disputes of the day of the mailings of the postmark shall be accepted as such a date. 377 to 209. Additional charges when the carrier has collected the amount of the tariff charge of the representative of the freight bill presented with the total amount of such charges therefore after present to the shipper with another freight bill with additional charges. The carrier may extend the credit amount of such additional charges for the period of 30 calendar days from the day of the presentation of the freight bill with additional charges. 377 to 211. The computation of the time. The time periods involved in the calendar day shall be calculated pursuant to Title 49 CFR 3868. 377 to 213 through 215. Reserve. 377 to 217. Interline settlement of revenues. Nothing in this part shall be interpreted affecting the interline settlement of the revenues from traffic which is transported over the routes of the composed lines. Motor carriers subject to the Secretary's jurisdiction under Title 49 U.S. Code, Subtitle 4, Part B. And this was part 377, payment of the transportation charges.